I'm Roy Heatherly with the Monroe Chamber of Commerce. I'm joined, as always, with my good friend Quentin Durr, who's with Origin Bank, Louisiana Catalyst, and I could go on for the whole show saying all the things that he's involved with. And we got a fun guest today. We got DJ Fortenberry with the City of Monroe. You probably know DJ from his pitching days at ULM.
Whoop, whoop. I don't think there's a lot of people that know DJ from his pitching days at ULM.
No, I love his story because DJ is who we're trying to attract up here. DJ moved here, went to ULM on a baseball scholarship, and DJ fell in love with our community and stayed. DJ, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I tell people, this past August made 19 years that I lived here, and I moved here when I was 19. So it's half my life has been spent in Monroe.
One more year, and it's all Monroe versus the others. Yeah. And so you've had an interesting career. You and I missed each other at the New Star. You're a small business owner, and now you work for the City of Monroe. Tell us what you're doing for the City of Monroe.
Well, so I do a little bit of a lot. I tell people one of the main ways to define my job is that last little line and all other things required by the mayor. But mainly what I do is kind of your traditional economic development type work, the recruitment of new businesses, response to RFPs. If we have people that call in that need assistance with pulling permitting or anything like that, and they call in the mayor's office and they don't call directly to planning and zoning, we have a don't pass it on, do the job if you can mentality at City Hall. So it's, if somebody calls and needs help, I try to help them. And then when we have people outside developers that are interested in potential projects in the city and things like that, I'll help them on identifying property and stuff like that. I like to tell people I'm a realtor that you don't have to pay, but it's gonna get to a point eventually in the conversation where I need you to bring a realtor to the table, or I'll pass you off to whoever is representing the properties.
You've used technology to really put together open retail space, open industrial sites, so that when people do come in, we can sit them down and you can begin to show them a portfolio of things that are available in Monroe.
Yeah, part of my job is kind of the GIS, the mapping of what's going on, and just chasing trends. I mean, you look at some of our business, it's along I-20 East right now. There's more red iron going up right now. Well, it's being covered because the businesses are close to being open. I think one of them, we have a ribbon cutting coming up pretty soon. But there's more development going on I-20 East now than I think probably the other 18 years that I've lived here. And so we're seeing a lot of growth in that area, and we're pushing for redevelopment downtown. And a lot of people ask why, but the main reason is because all the infrastructure is on the ground. And ultimately it's cheaper to develop there. We don't have to run new sewer lines. We don't have to run new, electrical. It's all there. Now we can make it better. And then another cool part about it is that it's kind of wide open. And so tracking what parking's available, what buildings are available, what opportunities are going on in certain areas it's kind of what we push at City Hall as far as development. And some of it requires a little reimagination. I mean, you take, and I'll name drop one of our developers here, Pelican Properties, is working on a project where they're turning an old tire store into apartments. Yeah. And so, one of the things we identified downtown that we need is people living there to basically reinvigorate that neighborhood that is downtown. You have a lot of development going on thanks to companies like Vantage and Representative Eccles and his family and what they're doing along Desire Street, but it's all from, just south of the interstate to just north of Louisville. That area is wide open. In fact, probably about 8 years now, I redeveloped a property down there because I saw it as an opportune area. And that property has had a tenant in it since the day we started. And so it's been there's a lot of opportunity for growth in that. It's got to be targeted. I mean, you can't come in there and put a full-blown grocery store right now and expect it to operate like Walmart
One
and
day.
stuff do. Well, yeah, one day.
day.
Now, if it's specialty,
Yeah.
you know, if we got a Whole Foods, if we were able to recruit
Right.
a Whole Foods or something like that, and we're trying to recruit specialty businesses like that to that area, then it would pull from other areas outside of just the Garden District, or just the Garden, other than just downtown. But there's a lot of room for opportunity, especially for small business growth, and kind of like I said, the reimagining of new properties or older properties into new businesses.
DJ, some people, I always like to kind of share that downtown's like the heart of a community. And from that, it pumps life into all the other areas of not only the town, but the region. And that's what the vision of City Hall is right now. Talk to us a little bit about, I mean, we've got passenger train coming, we've got the candy company development, we've got lighting and sidewalk projects, we've got the Bridgetown area. Talk to us about some of those things. We brought you in to talk about community meetings, but I think there's just so much happening in our city right now that it really is it may warrant you coming back on with us.
Well, you know, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of work being done at City Hall, thanks to our mayor. And some of those projects, I mean, we granted a new TIF to the DEDD, the Downtown Economic Development District. And for the last 20, 30 years, they've been meeting, but they haven't had a means to develop outside of capital outlay funding or grant funding, which sometimes can be a very slow process.
Right.
And so we started down the road of $1 million cap on per year TIF allocation there. Now they've maxed out their sales tax, which just kind of break it down. Sales tax, they can make $500,000 a year, and property tax collections, they can make $500,000 a year towards the TIF. And right now, there's a lot of property downtown that's underutilized. So the taxes on that are not nearly there, and there's a lot of properties that are still frozen from the cultural district tax credits and things like that. But some of that's about to roll off the books. And so there'll be a pretty substantial amount of property taxes collected going forward. And the new development of older properties that, you know, weren't active, that you have some new things coming in there. But the sales taxes are pretty significant right now. They've capped out on the sales tax piece, just simply because if you really think about it, like our really nice fine dining restaurants, you take out Waterfront, you take out Januses, but everything else is kind of right there in that area.
Right.
And then from an entertainment standpoint, a lot of the bars and nightclubs and stuff are right there in that area. So it's high sales tax driven businesses there. And on top of that, the surgical centers and the hospitals and stuff. But so with that, when that TIF was created, it gave DEDD a funding mechanism to start some new projects, which they've allocated $4.5 million to a new marina project. And, you know, people ask, when is that going to be done? Well, it's under engineering right now. As soon as engineering's done, they have the money, the project's going to get started. So we should have a new marina there in the next 2 to 3 years. But there's also burial of power lines, the cleaning up of sidewalks, ADA accessibility of sidewalks along Desert, along Walnut. The city's also had grant funding from the state to make a lot of corridors. So Jackson Street, Winsboro Road, Desert Street, Louisville, and I know I'm missing another one, but we've had that funding on board for the last few years. I say few years, probably 10, 15 years, and we're allocating those dollars and pushing those projects forward. Now, the thing about them is 10, 15 years ago, we were granted $1.5 million for a project that's now $3 million, but we're matching that with CIC funds to get those projects finished and get that funding off the books. But you'll see sidewalks and lighting projects in areas in the city that we haven't had. Winsboro Road, Jackson Street from Desert down to Plum. Desert Street has some lighting, but it needs the ADA accessibility and the sidewalks cleaned up because, like you said, Amtrak has already announced that they're going to be putting there'll be a stop in downtown Monroe. It's going to be at City parking lot, just next to Rain and across from a bunch of Vantage's offices. But they're looking at the next 2 years, we'll have 2 trains coming through town, one going east, one going west. And in 4 years, 4 coming through, 2 east, 2 west. And that'll open up, that's yet another opportunity for us to be connected to bigger metroplexes like Dallas and Atlanta. and with what's going on with the work from home and how that's really exploded after COVID. I mean, what that does for us is it allows us to concentrate on killing it with quality of life type projects,
right,
and make it to where you want to stay here. And one of the big selling points for North Louisiana, it's one of the most inexpensive places to live in the country. And so if I can get a job that pays me Dallas money and live in an area in Northeast Louisiana, and then now instead of having to drive 4 or 5 hours to get to the office, when you have your once or twice a month meeting, I can jump on a train and do work
right,
the whole way. To me, if that's not a selling point, I don't know.
No, it's a game changer. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It just from a tourist standpoint, if you want to just, hey, I live here and I'm gonna hop and shoot over to Dallas real quick for a weekend. That's nice not to have to drive.
Well, how many of us have a friend that's driven over to Jackson just to take the train down to go watch the Saints on a Sunday? I mean, I love that opportunity just because you can go watch the Saints on a Sunday, come right back the next day and get right back home, and you don't have to leave your car in another town,
Right.
just, right here in downtown Monroe.
Talk a little bit about, changing the subject a little bit, talk about MyGov.
MyGov. Okay, so one of the things we did recognize, and I'm gonna take a little bit of a jab at your generation, Uncle Roy. One of the things we did recognize is that in the city of Monroe, there were a lot of departments that hadn't quite increased their technology. We'll say that, whether it be because there was just, this is how we've always done it, there wasn't funding. Well, one of the things we asked was, hey, how do we integrate new technology into what we're doing so that less things fall through the cracks? And one of those is MyGov Online. It's a new permitting process, which we've had some growing pains with. Absolutely. I mean, we've had a lot of developers that have been doing this for 50, 60 years, and, they're at the back end of their careers and they don't want to learn a new system. But it's just, for us, it helps out in that it allows us to go through a process to where we can no longer say, well, I didn't have that. It's right there. No, it puts our thought process was it puts the power back in the developer's hands and say, no, it's right here. It's showing it's here. This is what we need to get done. Let's get it scheduled and get it done. And which we said, it's just a little more transparency on the workflow side of how permitting and things like that are done. Now, I'll also say I've been on the developer side and I've been now the city side for almost 3 years, almost 4 years. And one thing I have learned is that because we have zoning in the city, that opens us up for a few more meetings that you don't run into with the parish, where it's just open development style. And some of that is, a lot of people will run into, case in point, downtown historic district. There's certain paint colors that buildings have to, because of the funding that's available and the development cost that goes into everything else in that area, and allowing people to to qualify for this historic tax credits, the district has to look and feel a certain way.
Right.
And so paint colors play into that. And if you didn't know that, hey, I'm building this, well, I got to get this approved before I can move forward with this project, some of them make you scratch your head and say, why? We're talking paint colors, something that's not going to happen for months. And it came up with the St. Francis power plant project that's going on right now. They're talking about new red iron, but they've been building this building for the last, I want to say 2 months now, and it almost got held up because paint on the outside buildings. It's like, guys, we have a company that is adding on. They're not, so it's not, they've already been approved for paint colors. And so it's just kind of working through the process and working with them. And they were amenable and working through that. But it's sometimes it takes a little bit more in the city just because of that zoning. But like I said, when there's dollars involved, it makes sense. And I think for us, it's telling that story a little better. And it's kind of why I'm in the position I'm in, is trying to fix those and eliminate those conversations for people. And, hey, you're here. Have you applied for this? Do you know you got to do this? You have to do this, and try to speed the process up for people as much as possible.
Yeah, I could see that as a pain point for a company that's not from here trying to physically come to an office to file paperwork, whereas they can go online and do it. So that definitely would streamline the process.
Yeah, it's and like I said, there have been some pain points there because when you're the entire product was created and coded specifically for our zoning ordinances, for our rules and regulations, and so it took a little while to get it put together. And there's still some pieces in there that, you know, I'll get a phone call, hey, what's going on here? Why do I need to do this? Why do we need to do this? And it's just, like I said, we're still getting through some of that stuff. Only time will allow us to see all the problems before we can get them fixed.
Right.
But it is, from what I'm told, it's helped out drastically on getting projects moving forward. One issue we do have, and which would be very helpful to anybody looking, we need inspectors. I mean, plumbing inspectors, electrical inspectors, things like that. That would drastically help the process as well. We've been limited on just applications received, really. And so if we got some of those, that would fill some gaps for us. Anybody that's, you know, a plumber, electrician that's ready to retire, wants to pass the tests, apply, please.
Well, DJ, like I said, we're going to have you back. We're almost out of time, but preview just very quickly before we close out about what's happening in August with the military and the medical.
Yeah. So we applied. It's crazy. It's almost 2 years ago. We applied for what's called a Medical IRT. It's a no-cost medical care for any and everyone that walks up to the Civic Center or the West Monroe Convention Center. It's a Twin City dual application through the Delta Regional Authority that utilize the U.S. military, active duty, and reservists as a training exercise in our community. There'll be no-cost optical, pharmaceutical, mental health, dental. I mean, if you need teeth extractions, they'll do them. Now, if you need a root canal, they'll probably refer you to something. I mean, it's one-time experiences, but we've had a few planning meetings so far with the military where they've been in town, but we've also had a few community partnership meetings. So any community partners that think they may be interested, we're looking for any and every group that can assist or that can provide information to citizens. The goal is to treat about the goal is 6,000 patients treated. I have a feeling we'll hit that number pretty quickly. Yeah. But it's some of that, like I said, it's the first 2 weeks of August 1st through 14th. So we'll run into, that's right before high school football, right before Little League football. And so I think there'll be some days where we're just running through with physicals, you know, young men and women coming in and getting their physicals done. And, you know, where there's not a whole lot, it's not a whole lot of cost involved in that on the military's end, but we can get a lot of that stuff taken care of and save some people a doctor's trip.
Yeah,
honestly, you know. So, but it's no cost. Any and every one. It doesn't matter how big or small your economic background is or how much money you got in your pocket or don't have in your pocket. They're not going to ask you for health insurance. They're not going to ask you for any of that. It's the U.S. military training their assets for when emergencies happen, for when we have, and we're using it as emergency training as well. When we had a point-to-point contracts with some of our southern parishes, and you know we had Hurricane Urban come in, and we learned a lot as a team on training for that, and so we're going to utilize this kind of as a training exercise for ourselves as well.
DJ, thank you so much.
Of course.
We know you're pretty busy, but we appreciate you taking time to fill us in. We could spend another hour talking about all the great things that are happening in our community. It's truly a beautiful day in the city of Monroe, Louisiana, and Washita Parish.
Rain or shine.
Rain or
always
shine.
A beautiful day.
Always a beautiful day. Quentin?
Yep. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for being a business-friendly city.
Doing our best.
Thank you.
Thanks.